All right, Joe Mendoza's here. Joe, what's up, man? How you doing?
Fantastic. How about you, Derek?
Well, it's been a long time since I've had the chance to talk with you, so I look forward to getting your insights on what's going on in today's market. Joe, I have one question that I think is kind of an interesting one for this particular marketplace because we've seen the San Diego market do well over the last few years.
Yes.
Typically what happens in places where we have high price points like we do in San Diego is that when the market does well, people try to sell their own homes.
Exactly.
Now, call this for sale by owner, FSBOs if you want to call it that. But people think that they can go sell their own homes. The market's so hot, I don't need to hire an agent, I don't need to pay these commissions, or whatever it is that's going through their mind. Is this something that's coming back? I've seen a couple of these recently.
Absolutely. When the market starts heating up again, there's really no value in a realtor in a for sale by owner's mind.
Right.
And they think they can do it on their own, and they certainly can.
Mm-hmm.
But I use the example whenever I'm in front of a for sale by owner is, Mr. Seller, it's kind of like cutting your own hair. You can certainly do it, but the chances of it turning out well, what are your chances?
I've been cutting my own hair for a while. I don't know, what do you think? So
there are exceptions to every rule.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So, all right. Well, so if someone wants to go through with this, you're saying it can be done. It's just it might be a little bit ugly. Maybe you won't get the ideal result. So let's talk to those people. For people who are looking to do this, looking to sell their own home, what are some tips for someone who's going through that they might not necessarily expect or understand about the process?
Well, a lot of them set the expectations way too low. They think it's really easy to do what we do as a realtor, which is certainly true in some instances. A seller could put a sign in the yard.
Mm-hmm.
They can certainly advertise on Craigslist, on Zillow, on the MLS. But at that point, where does it keep going?
Mm-hmm.
Probably it stops right there most of the time. Because what I know about most sellers is they're not full-time agents, so they have a job, right?
Yep.
And so showing between 9 to 5 when they're at work probably never happens because they're at work.
So the first thing you have to do when you come home from work is show the house because that's the only time you can schedule it.
Exactly. And if you're having a bad day,
I think that's going to help your sales pitch.
Probably not, right?
Yeah, okay. So I think what you're saying is that most people who are trying to do a for sale by owner think that it's mostly just about listing the home in the MLS and essentially the marketing side of things. But they're not thinking about what happens next. What happens when someone's interested? What happens when I get an offer? Those types of things.
Exactly. So a lot of the times they'll have a potential buyer. Maybe they do an open house. A buyer comes in, and typically they'll, submit an offer, but it's going to be way low. They're going to submit an offer. They don't even know if the buyer's qualified. There's so many factors when, the ball starts rolling downhill.
I tell you, too, this is just me personally. I've never bought a for sale by owner or done a for sale by owner myself. But if I'm buying something from from a person that I would normally get from a store or through a professional, you kind of expect a discount, don't you? I mean, if I'm buying something off Craigslist versus Best Buy,
right,
I'm expecting a discount.
Exactly.
So that, to me, I think is the part that most for sale by owners probably aren't thinking. Is the market hot enough to disfunct that?
I would say be careful. Be really, really careful. If a seller is going to go for sale by owner, I seen some of them, their discount is like, okay, instead of 6% that I'm going to be spending out, I'm going to go ahead and offer a buyer agent 2.5%. So they're expecting a 3% discount. Well, that discount doesn't go too far because all of a sudden, if a agent does help out this for sale by owner, what happens is they're going to start trying to leverage that realtor for forms, disclosures, et cetera, and the agent on the other side who's representing the buyer is thinking, holy smoke, now I'm working twice as hard for half as much. It doesn't sit too well with most agents and most people.
Here's the link to the disclosures. Go figure it out.
Exactly.
That's probably what you're going to get.
Exactly.
It is complicated. I mean,
very complicated.
The RPA is how many pages now?
The first part is 10 pages. Then you have the other part, which is the seller advisory, buyer advisory, SBSA. There's multiple disclosures, and we're just talking the RPA, the purchase agreement.
Yeah, not the loan paperwork or any of that stuff. And I think it's like somewhere around 30 pages once you get to
Whenever
all
I
of
submit
it.
My offer, it's usually at the minimum 23 pages.
Okay.
At the minimum. But then when open escrow, I mean, we're looking at double, triple that amount with all the Megan's disclosures, seller's additional disclosure, transfer disclosure statements, with pest disclosure, et cetera, et cetera, et
They
cetera.
keep adding disclosures, man. That's what they.
That's right.
Eventually, it's going to take a week to sign the paperwork. You're going to have to do it in sessions.
That's what's really interesting, Derek, about California, because what I'm understanding, it is the most litigious state in the nation. And so buyers are suing sellers all the time for anything.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
of course.
Yep.
Because these transactions are big.
Yep.
And if someone buys a property that they get buyer's remorse or something like that happens and they start going, how can we get out of this?
Yes.
And so if you don't have all your bases covered, that could be a big problem. Tell me this, Joe, because you work really all over San Diego,
Yes,
right?
sir.
What is the current state of this market? I've got two schools of thought going on right now. We just did a poll on smartersandiego.com where we asked people what they expected in the second half of the year. I don't know if you saw that poll or not, but we had three options: stay the same, go higher, or go lower. And it was almost exactly even across the board. Now, that's the first time I've seen opinions about the market, especially with our audience, be that widespread amongst all three possibilities, whereas everyone's just kind of said, it's going to keep chugging, keep chugging. Does that mean we're starting to get to a point where maybe we're going to level off a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. What's happening is, I would say, if you price your home right, it doesn't matter what the market is doing.
Okay.
And that's where a professional comes in. However, if you price it wrong and you're dealing with the market climate out there, it's just going to really take this, this storm that you're not expecting. And so you'll have the ups and downs in the market where it's one of those things. You just got to be really careful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've seen it because I track tons of properties in all the markets of San Diego. And I see a lot of these properties that have been on the market for 180 days
Correct.
plus.
Correct.
And I'm going, how's that possible, in today's climate where we've got properties that are selling, they're flying off the shelves. How in the world could we have someone who's got a property that's been on the market for 180 plus days? Well, it's just simply not priced correctly.
Exactly.
And once you get that stigma attached to your address, it doesn't go away. And I've noticed it myself because I'll see some of these come back on the market and I'll get the notification, back on the market, this one, and I'll remember it. It's almost like they stick out, like these people are out of their minds.
Exactly.
Isn't that crazy?
Exactly.
So you got to be really, really careful from that perspective. So you think that you think it's starting to slow down? Is it cyclical situation, or is it just taking a breather from the big run-up?
Well, it's definitely cyclical because I notice I've been in the real estate business going on 20 years. Officially licensed 17, unofficially 20 plus.
Wow.
And so what I've noticed every time during the summer months, you'll have that little run up, right? Because kids are out of school, buyers, this is the best time to transfer kids out of school. This is a time it's easy to move.
Right.
And so it is cyclical in that arena. What I am seeing, however, in the overall arena is rates are starting to spike up. And so when the rates spike up, prices start to drive down. And what we're seeing is multiple things, for either if you're on the fence as a buyer, on the fence as a seller, on the fence as an investor, depends. It could be working in your favor or against you.
Real quick, let's touch on that, Joe, before we run out of time. What about rates? Because Federal Reserve is supposed to raise rates a little later this year. It's coming up. I mean, I'm talking about less than a month in September. If that were to happen and we were to see mortgage rates go up a little bit, would that cause some problems for the real estate market?
Absolutely. Again, depending what side of the fence you're sitting on.
Right.
For the buyers, if rates go up, affordability goes down for them. Mm-hmm. So they were thinking about buying a $400,000, $500,000 house. Now they got to drop it down to $50,000 or less, depending on what's going on with their debt to income ratio. And so their choice of home, they were thinking here, now it's down here.
Right.
And so that's going to really hurt the buyers. As a sellers, well, guess what? Not as many buyers are qualifying for your home. You wanted this. Now you got to drop your price just because rates went down.
Mm.
As a lender, their business is going to slow down for purchases and refinance because when rates go up, payments go up. So who's going to want a loan now?
Right.
For an investor, that's actually a good thing for them
Really? It's good for the investors?
Yeah, so I kind of save the best for last for some people. So for the investors, if rates go up, prices go down, well, here comes a feeding frenzy again for the investors.
The cash guys, they don't care about the rates.
Rates don't matter at that point.
Oh.
And so sellers drop their price, investors come out and play again.
Great stuff. Joe Mendoza, thank you so much for coming in today and sharing your knowledge with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Fantastic stuff from Joe Mendoza, Smarter San Diego. Stick around.